So we just spent about an hour doing Ricky's Hooptober list, which we were originally going to release as an episode, but it was unlistenable probably. So
not probably,
so
definitely.
But you're doing Hooptober.
Yep.
Do you want to explain for the watchers what Hooptober is, even though you don't really know what Hooptober is?
Yeah, I was gonna say like not particularly, but I can give it a shot. Hooptober
give it a shot.
Is
Hooptober is the thing that Lane strong-armed me into doing.
Yeah, it's a bunch of horror movies, at least 31 over the course of October that you'll watch and you like review up on Letterboxd, or you like rate or whatever up on Letterboxd. And like I assume there's different criteria for each year. This is the 11th year that it's been running, so there's a lot of criteria behind it. I mean,
hell yeah.
Not that it like the criteria grows with time, but that I don't know. There's a lot of criteria. And like one of the films always has to be by Tobe Hooper or Toby Hooper.
Toby.
And there must always be a Hooper film. So yeah, and my Hooper.
Hooptober.
Yes.
Toby Hooper.
Yeah. My Hooper is, what's my Hooper?
Texas Chainsaw. We're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. I was thinking of the Wes
Spoilers
Craven, the Nightmare on Elm, because he also did the Scream movies.
Yeah.
The Hooptober thing, that's from Nightmare on Elm. They're like
what?
Never mind. There's like on the post. There's like a splash art, which is from what I assume.
Oh yes,
is
from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's because it's the first movie in that list, the like master list.
That's why I assumed it was.
Yeah. Wes Craven. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Anyway,
yes.
I don't know. Looking forward to it. Yeah, a lot more movies than I generally watch in any given time period. So.
Well, and I'm giving you the grace to start sooner, so you can have 2 full months as opposed to the 6 weeks.
Well, Lane,
generally
we've actually already started.
I know. So actually, you're getting 10 weeks.
Yeah, well, really, I'm
you
getting
can watch
permission.
31 movies in 10 weeks.
Yeah. 3 a week is pretty doable. 1 a day is not very doable.
Yeah. I'm doing the longer time period, but I'm also watching more movies, so I feel vindicated.
How many movies you
I'm
watching,
excited.
Lane?
I think 50.
Jeez.
So I found a nice
Christ.
clean, even 50. So, but I'm also starting when you're starting, which is, earlier than like the allotted time period. But there's also just like, I'm looking forward to revisiting some of these. Like I rewatch American Werewolf in London every year. Cause that's like top 3 favorite movies for me.
Hell yeah.
There were some movies that I really wanted to watch that didn't fit my criteria, but then like I hit my like I met all the 31 and I was like, well, damn, I still want to see these other movies. So I added those 2. So I'm excited. It's going to be fun to talk about over the next few weeks.
That's honestly how I felt about a lot of these, where I was like, you know what? I kind of want to add these.
Yeah.
I ended up with I've got a back burner now. I've got my normal movie backlog, and now I've got a horror movie backlog. So
that's cool. That's cool though. That's a good thing.
Yeah. It's
the horror back burner.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, I do that too, where I'll start my 2025 horror movie list for like Halloween, and then I'll build off my Hooptober list from that, and then anything that doesn't make the cut, I move it to the next year's list. So I have my 2025 list started too.
Hell yeah.
So you're not alone.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're on Letterboxd, find Ricky.
Addled Alpaca.
He's Addled Alpaca.
You know how it goes.
I'm Ganon_Kazooie. Yeah. Anyway, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you're gonna hear about it because this is our intro for the next 8 weeks, probably.
Yeah,
it's gonna be talking about this.
I mean, these are going to be coming out in September and October, right?
Yeah. So Midsommar is the first episode in our We Wanna Wail series.
Okay. Right.
This is We Wanna Watch, and my name is Lane, by the way.
My name's Ricky. It's actually We Wanna Wail. So.
Well. The Midsommar episode should come out mid-September. Mid-September.
We'll work on it.
So, so we're like a month ahead recording right now, but yeah, it's gonna be the horror episodes will come out during the horror season.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of horror episodes, this week we
I'm
watched
excited.
Both versions of, or well, not both. I guess there's more than these two, but two versions of the movie Psycho. One from 1960 and one from 98?
1998. Yep. Yeah. So this was one of my picks. This was two Lane's frames. I had seen Psycho, the original, and I had not seen the 1998 remake, but I was fascinated by its existence and really thought it would be an interesting discussion piece for us. But you have alluded to it not being interesting, and you said, I think I have a half hour in me on both of these movies, which is crazy. How could you say that?
Yeah.
What's wrong
Well, I
with
said
you?
I have at least
Also,
a half hour in these movies.
Okay, well, geez.
I did prep Lane by saying I don't think I have much to talk about with these movies, honestly. I'll say,
and I said I was going to kick you in the head, like Julianne Moore kicks Vince Vaughn in the head at the end of Psycho.
I'll give you like my basic rundown and like why I don't think I have much to talk about, right?
Okay. First, we should. I feel like we should bifurcate the discussion. I mean, I guess you can give your overall, but I do think that we have to like talk about the first one first, and then talk about the second one. Like I can't. We cannot just be like, oh yeah, let's talk about them both.
Yeah. That's fair.
So.
The first one is like a very much so like, oh shit, that's where that comes from. Literally from like the intro song, I was like, oh my god. Like everything comes to it. Even like the water swirling the drain. It's like, oh okay, right. Like this is where this like
long legs,
very strong visual I don't know, appeal indicators, whatever comes from. And yeah, I loved it. I loved the 1960 version. I thought it was great.
Fuck yeah.
Really cool movie. It sort of seems like the baseline for all horror movies, like going forward after it.
Invented slashers, basically.
Yeah. I also, and this is only after having seen both of them, right? So, which is why it's hard to sort of bifurcate it. I really appreciate what they managed to do with the old one in terms of how they framed each scene, how the reveal sort of comes across. Like, I really, really appreciated everything that they did and, like, the thought that went into the 1961, which I maybe didn't enjoy as much as in the 98 version.
Okay, fair. So setting aside the 98 one, I do want to talk about the 61 one.
Yeah, let's just talk about the 61.
Did you... I know, so part of the reason that I brought this up, or wanted to watch this, was because you have frequently done the, like, thing, including on this show. And so how much of the story of this movie did you know? Did you know the twist?
No.
Did you know like anything?
No.
That's awesome. That's great. How did that feel?
So I only knew that and when it happened, like I paused or whatever to like check the timestamp. It was like 45 or not 45. It was like halfway through the movie. I forget how long the movie is, but it's like exactly halfway through. I was like, what the fuck is going to happen in the rest of this movie? Because I thought that was like it.
Yeah. Right.
And I also was like not too compelled by it up to that point because I was like, oh, this isn't like too much.
Yeah, it's a heist movie, or like not a heist movie, but like a thieving whatever kind of like movie. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, fine, like pretty cool. Something that this movie does really well, which I knew I was going to mention, and like I kind of like laughed to myself about when they're in cars, the traveling.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Yeah. So specifically, like the first travel sequence when she's like hearing, like them back at the office.
Yeah, everybody's
and like
voiceover.
Like, it does make it like really sort of eerie, and like you can see it sort of like building on her. Mm-hmm. She's like white knuckling the steering wheel a bit, getting into it.
Both times she's in the car too, and she hears those voiceovers, it'll like cut to what she's looking at, and then it'll cut back to her face, and it's like getting darker because it's nighttime, and it like adds, of course, like the visual symbolism of her like descent into darkness, or moral decay or whatever, like is really moving and cool, especially in a car like that.
Yeah, yeah, which is also moving.
You know, it adds to it.
And cool. Cars are cool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. No. But like, I really enjoyed that. And then like later when her sister and Sam are in the car, and you get like just a snippet of conversation between the two, and then like it cuts. I was like, oh, okay. Like I really appreciate. I don't know. I appreciate being shown that. I like that sort of like. It builds, you know, like it's like a character building thing. It helps like move the story along a little bit.
Totally.
And there's a TV show I watched, which I don't remember the name of, where they did it really well. And it essentially like this cop was being like possessed by like an evil spirit.
Cool.
And someone else who's investigating it. But like sort of informally, she was like hired to investigate it by like families or whatever, and she's like more of like the woo shamanic side. He like kind of kidnaps her at a certain point. Spoilers, I guess. I don't know. Spoilers for the show that I can't remember the name of.
TV show that we don't.
Yeah. But like he kind of kidnaps her, but when he does, it's really cool how they build tension between the scenes, especially like
yeah.
I don't know, just like in the car, they like stop at a rest stop, and like you can see him sort of like battling with like his like demons inner like imagined and real, right? Because they are like very real. And like how much she's willing to acknowledge like, oh, like this is like an actual thing that's like affecting him versus like, oh, it's like a psychological yada yada. So it's like it's cool, and it's like an interesting way to build tension and stakes. So yeah, I don't know. And then when they stop the rest stop, it's like, oh fuck, like something has to happen here, right? And like the way that they cut back and forth, like between those scenes, and then like the scenes of like the other people like on her team or whatever who are like trying to get into contact with her, it's just really cool. And I really appreciate like scenes that show transportation, and like movies that like are willing to sort of get into transportation, because like we touched on that in Midsommar as well, just like the cool camera angle thing, which is just like on the brain. But I feel like it's, if you omit it, you lose a lot, right?
Oh, for sure. You get so much from her character just in those driving scenes, because I mean she does fucking die, you know, immediately after, basically. So you don't get like an arc from her. Like her arc is truly like violently cut at the peak, you know, of it, because she's about to go back home.
Right. We like almost get the taste of
so
redemption.
Much. Yeah. And just on the transportation note, something I couldn't stop thinking about in this movie is how every time they pull up to the motel and they get out by sliding across the bucket seats. Like, because the cars are old, there's no like center console, or like you could just like slide all the way out the other side. It was just, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just it's so like funny and of the time to be like, oh, I'm gonna get in at like on the right hand, like the passenger side, and then just slide over to the driver's seat. It's just funny. Yeah. It's quaint.
Weird. Yeah,
a lot of this movie's very kind of quaint.
It is, and I really enjoyed it for that.
Which is crazy for how transgressive it is too. Like, this is from the 60s, right? Like, it, you know, some of the things that they say and show and like imply are just like shockingly, like you're very much like, oh, we are not in like the Hays Code anymore. Like, we are very much showing like blood and suggested, you know, homosexuality, and like, you know, they even say the word transvestite, like all of that kind of stuff, which is crazy.
Yeah, really awesome. Speaking of like the blood shown, the like murder scene itself is awesome. I mean, that's great. That's like peak. That's peak horror.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's shot really super well, where like I was watching, I was like, all right, like, yeah, it's the mother, like, whatever. I was like, all right, like, big whoop, what's the big
So
deal?
you had no idea?
No.
You didn't know?
No.
That's so cool.
No, I literally
jealous.
was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, it's the mom, like, so what? Like, this is not, like, too crazy. I was like, I don't know why people buy into the hype in this movie so much, right?
Yeah.
And then so, like, as the movie progresses, it really does sort of, I don't know, it's really cool. It builds on it. And, I mean, the way that they like pull the fake out with like him doing the voice of the mother, it's like it's cool.
Yeah.
It's really it's awesome.
Yeah.
And like the like shadows that you see sometimes through the window, like I don't know,
Mhm.
all just really cool, really interesting. I don't know, it's super well made. Like the 1960 version is just like
Have you
great.
seen
Anyway, but yeah.
have you seen any Hitchcock movies? You said you've seen The Birds?
I think I've seen The Birds. Yeah,
right?
maybe only clips of it, but I'm pretty sure I've seen
Okay.
most, if not all of it. Yeah.
Okay. What about the any others like Rear Window or like North by Northwest? None of those.
No, not a one. The
Trying to
Birds
think
was
if
cool.
there's
I
any
really liked The Birds.
Vertigo.
That freaked me out for like a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some good shit in that one. Yeah, for sure. Okay, interesting. So I'm like blown away that you didn't know. Like does he know? He
Does he
doesn't.
know?
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know. No, yeah, I had no idea. Yeah.
So, did you recognize Anthony Perkins, Norman?
He looked familiar. I don't know who he is.
He's from The Trial. He's the lead actor from The Trial. He is
yeah,
the dad of the director of Longlegs as well. Remember, if you remember during that episode, we talked about how he was like a gay man, but he was kind of in this fucked up marriage, and then
right,
that informs all of.
Yeah, you talked
yeah,
about that.
yeah.
We did not talk about that. You talked
I
about
did.
that. Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was being generous. I didn't want to, but yeah. So casting him in this role, and like, I can feel that the 1998 version is like breathing down my neck right now. I'm so excited to talk about it with you, but.
Yeah.
In this movie, his casting, right, where like we even talked about it in The Trial of like, well, he's gay, and like that kind of comes across in his screen persona, like he's just a little bit more effeminate in that movie, and like he seems anxious around women, and like how does that subtext inform the movie? Well, obviously it's informing the movie here,
Yes.
because it's almost like one big joke of like, he's like peeping on her, on Marion, like obviously the like, transvestite, whatever. Like, I don't even want to get into the politics of this movie.
Yeah.
Like the schizophrenia, whatever. Like, whatever. Split personalities. Like, I don't care. This movie, it's a horror movie, whatever. Like, just setting it all aside for a second. But like, him playing, like, his persona as a gay man, then playing this, like, kind of like comedic, like, I don't even know. He's not like an archetype or a stereotype even, but like it's just a very interesting kind of layered portrayal, and it makes him seem less threatening on screen. Especially in the beginning, like he's not imposing, he's not like, he seems weird and kind of like effeminate, but he doesn't seem like he's going to like really enact harm on her.
Right.
And it's like deceptive and good,
So a lot of the descriptions that I've heard about serial killers, especially not Jeffrey Dahmer. Who was the big serial killer? That people were like always
Ted Bundy.
Maybe Bundy. I think Bundy, where people were like, oh, he has a reputation for being like very suave and having like sweet talked his way into.
Yeah, that's Ted Bundy.
Right. He was not very suave, right? He would like fake like broken legs. He was very pitiable, right? And that's what this guy brings to the role, right? Like he seems very pitiable.
That's
it's
true.
like,
yeah.
Like when he like asked her like, oh, like, I'd very much like if you like come eat dinner with me. I guess it's not much, right? But I can sort of set the table. It's so pitiable. It's so like, yeah, I'll come. Yeah, I'll go up there. I guess.
Yeah. And the way she treats him is totally like unassuming,
right.
Or like unnervous, not nervous at all. She's not scared. She's just very like weirded out by how vulnerable and like pitiful he seems.
Right. Yeah. Even after like the bird scene, right? Where he like he very like I mean there's like a ton of I don't know, like meaning and stuff that I'm missing there, right? Like caged birds, yeah, yada yada. Like in the story he tells her about the bird, but birds don't eat much.
I feel like there's like a bunch of different ways that you could put it. Like, okay, it's taxidermy on its face, creepy.
Yeah.
Birds of prey, creepy.
Yeah.
The owl that is my favorite part of the whole movie. I think I don't know. This is a great movie, but like the owl in the corner, like above his head, like with the like under like the lighting from beneath, and then like just kind of
with the
hovering above him the whole time.
I love they're not like horns, but like the owl horn, whatever they are, you know. Yeah.
It's cool. It's so funny and like on the nose, but it's great. So like those are just creepy. But then I think there's also like, well, birds is slang for women,
right?
You know,
right.
like, so that's something. His mom is stuffed,
right?
You know, she's taxidermied too. Yeah. She's also a woman, like, but then also I think, you know, birds are flighty and kind of, you know, they're kind of like a feminine animal. You know, comparatively, like he says, like foxes and whatever else.
Yeah, I couldn't handle a beast.
You know, so
when he like starts talking about like the differences between like the beasts of the land versus the birds of the air, and he's like, and the birds are more passive, right? And like I feel like that's also he sort of, I think, likes to see himself as a bird in many ways too, like as a caged bird.
Totally.
But he's very passive.
Yeah, they talk about traps.
Then, he's like traps within yada yada. And he was born into it, whatever. Which is like it's cool and interesting, and it adds a lot, and there's a lot that like you could definitely delve into there. But I didn't. I mean, I have like a very surface level reading of it. But it's cool. I mean, it's great to see, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't have to think about it intellectually for it to have impact on you, psychologically. You know what I mean? So
also,
that's part of the beauty of
this freaky movie about birds growing up, and it's still
that's
weird.
True. Yeah, it is funny. Well, and there's a lot of like bird words in this. Crane. They live in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a third thing, but yeah, there's just like a lot of bird stuff happening, and it's very interesting. Yeah.
They didn't pick up on the birds.
I think too.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, and like his.
It's a stork reminder.
Like him
I was just thinking about sorry.
Should be in jail. No, I feel like birds are also just like kind of a peaceful, like seeming or like docile seeming creature, and so they are very much like him trying to maintain his peaceful childhood home life status quo domestic.
Right.
He
wants to stay in the
like
nest.
You could take it that direction.
And then he tries to like rebuild
sure,
that nest.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, he's living in this perpetually like frozen state, you know, whereas she is like fleeing, you know. So it's the bird imagery can go in a lot of directions.
And it's funny that she's trying to, you know, fly away, right?
Yeah.
It's funny that you would say like the frozen state, because he specifically says to her, like
nobody really leaves.
No, the other line that it was right by there. I found it really striking. He was just like, "Oh, I bet you've never had like a boring moment in your life or something."
Oh, an empty moment.
Yeah, an empty moment.
Something?
Yeah, and it's like
yeah.
It betrays that longing, that sort of like, you know, that wish for something more
that he really feels.
Right, while still being sort of like, I don't know, beleaguered, downtrodden by your current cage, as he would call it, like by his trap, and being unable to leave it. Yeah, it's interesting. He's
so good in this.
Yeah.
I mean, she is also really good, Janet Leigh, but he is like incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's you know, he plays such a good balance of like, vulnerable and pitiful, but also he does have like just a little bit of sinister.
There's something weird going on there. Yeah. And it's like nothing behind the eyes either. It's just a little like, something's off.
Oh, I disagree.
Really?
He's warm. I feel like he comes across very warm, like, and like secretly desperate, like very hungry for like a connection.
Yeah.
You know? Not that there's like, he's not like a cold.
Well, I didn't
calculating.
Right.
You know
I didn't mean like there's nothing behind the eyes. Like, I don't mean like, oh, he's got the eyes of a shark, right? Like, I meant like there was no like malice or anything behind the eyes, at least.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, because I feel like Vince Vaughn has his interpretation of this character is the opposite, where I feel like it is very shark-like. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Yeah. We'll talk about that. We can't start there.
We can talk about the '98 version later. I didn't like it as much. Just straight up upset. But go on, whatever.
Okay.
We could talk about.
That's fair.
We can finish. We can finish thoughts on the '60s version.
Yeah. But no, his delivery of A Boy's Best Friend and His Mother.
Yeah.
He says it so casually that I remembered him delivering it with like a lot of weight. Like I just remembered him saying it like very like clippable, like a boy's best friend is his mother. Like I just remembered him but no, he just kind of cast that line off, and it's even creepier that way because it's like it doesn't even register to him that it's creepy. Yeah. It's awesome. It's so good. He's so good. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else. What do you think of the other kill on the staircase? I have a feeling you're going to think it's goofy.
No, that was great. Okay. So, bringing the 98 version into this, the 98 version looks goofy, right? The 60s version of that particular scene, just that particular scene, the 60s version, I think...
Also looks goofy.
Also maybe looks goofy. I really enjoyed it.
It's rear projection.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it too, but I think it does... There are parts of this movie that are super goofy. Even the 60s version.
Yeah, sure.
Like, it looks silly. He's like windmilling his arms.
He is.
Whoa!
That's great.
It's so funny.
Good. And it's also, like, it's a character...
That's what I mean.
I love that character, and, like, watching him die, I was like, oh, fuck. And then, like the way that he dies is, like, sort of, like, silly and over the top. But it's... I don't know, like... If you're getting stabbed on like a staircase, like I don't know, I'm gonna try to grab the guy. I know my arm's gonna windmill, and I feel like it's sort of I don't know. A lot of times in horror movies, or like I guess just in movies in general, when there's like a death, if they're going to make it absurd, they like in like The Boys or something, right? They'll make it like super absurd. Versus like if it's going to be like a meaningful death, if it has to resonate with the viewer, like there's generally a little bit more. It's either like very violent, or there's like a little bit more like aplomb with it, where it's like almost ritualistic. And this was like none of those. It was just sort of like it was goofy, just because of like the way that like you are the killer essentially, like watching him like struggle and fall
it's a
backwards.
POV shot.
Yeah, which is like it's cool. I don't know. I don't think it's bad for that at all either. I think it's really good.
I don't think it's bad either. I just think it does look silly. It looks corny, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't mind that.
Yeah, I've never minded corny. Like, I was born on the cob, so.
Yeah. Have you seen a lot of slasher movies? I know we watched Halloween.
Yeah. I think that's one of the like handful that I've seen. Ones. Yeah. Maybe I've seen 5 to 10.
No, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scream?
I don't think I've seen the first one. I've seen one of them. I don't remember which one. Okay. It wasn't great. Like, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But like...
Yeah, some people consider this the first slasher, I would say.
Yeah, I can see why.
You know, this movie's influence, like you're saying, you know, there's so many shots that are just like iconic.
Even just in like slasher like related media, anything that like parodies or is like pointing towards the iconography is just so distinct, so iconic. It's just like, oh, okay, like it's this movie, right? This is the blueprint.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to stop talking about this movie because there are lots of scenes and stuff that we didn't even get to, but we have to talk about the 90s version. First I'm going to say...
Can I just say the 60s version, that last scene, the psychologist explaining it...
Sucks.
Ooh,
it sucks.
Really? It sucks. You don't like it?
Real bad. It's awful.
I like it.
Yeah, it's somebody basically reading the last the Wikipedia paragraph of anything and being like, this is the exposition.
Oh.
It's super clunky. It's so clunky.
The psychologist himself, whatever, I think he did a better job than the 98 sucks. Guy. Fine, because they're both doing the same thing. But I mean, like the very last scene where like the mother is doing like the voiceover,
mom.
And then like you get that flash of the skull and then it like cuts to the skull, the car being pulled out. That in the 60s version, that's great, perfect. Like that is A1. Like with the fly and everything, A1, perfect, right? I mean the psychiatrist before it, yada yada, whatever. I mean,
that really takes it, like sucks all the fun out of the movie.
Yeah.
It like takes like a big like turkey baster and is like
Yeah.
It's awful. It like stops the movie cold. You're like, you don't want to see this shit. Who cares? Show me Norman. Like I want to see Norman.
That guy
like,
also like he's like the type that like it's like, oh, okay, this guy wants to hear himself talk.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and
which the character is fine, but the writing, it's just very much like it's like they were like, what questions is the audience going to have at the end of the movie? And then they have the Sam and Lila characters basically delivering them. Like, did he kill my sister? Like, shut up.
When it's also like answered immediately before that, when he's like, you see him pop up and he says, "I'm Norma Bates." Like, it's like, oh, okay, great. Like, I got it. Like, boom. Like, that's all I needed, right?
Yeah, right.
And then they just, like, beat you over the head with it for, like, 5 minutes. And then they get back to, like, the good part.
Maybe in the 60s... Yeah, maybe in the 60s it was just so fucking mind-blowing that they couldn't... You know, because, like, I know I said I didn't want to talk about this, but here I am. Like, the sexual deviant, like, gender deviant, whatever person being, like... you know, the big villain in like a horror movie, especially a slasher. That's a very common trope, and I think it traces back to this. Obviously, like Silence of the Lambs is one that you and I have seen. That's pretty, you know, like, and so I guess back then it wasn't at the forefront of people's minds. Like they didn't think of it that way. So like there was a need to explain what was going on. Also, split personality.
Yeah,
like, other than Jekyll and Hyde. You know, but
I was gonna say I kind of appreciate it because, so like with Silence of the Lamb, they sort of
lambs. There's more than one.
Silence of the Lambs, the multiple ones.
They silenced one lamb.
Yeah, I don't know. They made it seem like to me that was it Buffalo Bill, like like that the sort of like gender transformative stuff was like all a part of like the mental illness, right? And like that's why like he was like killer and everything. And it's like okay. That kind of sucks. At least in this movie, at least they're
like he's not actually trans.
Like,
it's fine.
They're like like listen, like he's not doing this. Like it's not like a sexual fulfillment thing. Like that. Like don't get it twisted. Like these are crimes of passion.
But also,
but
he's still weird about
twisted
sex, though.
Psychological thing. Yeah, he is still weird about sex, but it's because of this like this jump. Yeah. He's like created this version of his mom within his mind who has like taken over his mind, right? So like you got to get that straight. And so like I feel like having that sort of like
the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
So like
I think having that disclaimer like helps though. Like explicitly said like bop bop like
sure. Well, Silence of the Lambs does too. At one point, they say like, well, Jodie Foster's character says like, well, you know, transgender people don't, you know, normally like enact violence. They're actually
do this, Dr. Lecter.
Yeah. Great voice. She's great. We should kill a president for her in Minecraft. Reagan. It's on site. There's a new Ronald Reagan movie out right now, like a biopic about Ronald Reagan. I secretly, like a fucked up part of me, the Norma Bates in me wants to go see it.
Wow.
I know. It's like catnip.
I could be Norman Baited into that, you know.
Middle of the We Wanna Wail series, we go see the new Ronald Reagan
That'd be
movie.
crazy. That'd actually be a good one to throw in there, I'm not gonna lie, right? Like...
No, I'm not going to see that movie.
Trickle down Reaganomics! Ah!
It looks so bad. I'll send you the trailer when we're done, and you'll be like, holy shit, this is so bad. They do you know the Tears for Fears song, Everybody Wants to Rule the World?
Yeah.
They do like a horror movie, like little kids singing that song cover and put it in that movie's trailer. I'm like, what are we doing? But slow, you know, the slow, creepy version where there's like strings.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's. I think that's horrible, honestly. Like pretty much any like. I don't know that trope.
It's a terrible
that,
trope.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
They're playing a piano with like nails in it and shit, and it's like
plunking
it's
of like a xylophone.
Yeah.
Children's laughter. Okay. But so I kind of understand that like the gender whatever like of it all. There's no way like anytime that you're gonna have a villain be a man in a dress or like a man dressed as a woman or whatever it is, like you're harping on those kinds of stereotypes, and I think a lot of it, most of it can be traced to here, and then I think of course, it's just been reproduced over and over. Silence of the Lambs, Dressed to Kill, like tons and tons of 80s movies, you know. So it sucks, but like that's, I guess, what they're going for with the explanation at the end is to like explain this new trope to audiences. Like, hey, we're doing something new here.
Yeah. Just in case you haven't noticed, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I again, like I said, I think it's a good thing, right? Like, to sort of like, I don't know, instead of inundating these sheltered minds with it, like,
I just don't think that anybody is going to take that, like, it's the same with Silence of the Lambs. No one's going to, like, look at that and be like, oh, but actually, you know, he's not really a trans person. Like, they're not. You know, they're going to collapse that all into the horrible stereotype and iconography of that. And so, you know, it's like a disclaimer or a caveat that doesn't work. You know, it's like putting like the smoking causes lung cancer on cigarettes. Like, you're not actually doing anything.
I was gonna say, at the very least, like, they can say that they've warned you, right? And like, like if you get in an argument with someone else, they can say like, oh, like, did you watch the last 5 minutes of the movie? And they're like, so? Like, the dumbass psychiatrist? It's like, I mean, right. Like, words, meanings.
That's me being like the fucking dumbass psychiatrist. Yeah.
No.
You mean you didn't hear this throwaway line where they said, actually, this guy's not trans, and so everything's okay?
Actually, just in case you didn't notice. Yeah. Sucks, but anyway.
The car being pushed into the swamp and being pulled out of the swamp, that is also really scary. Like, I don't like water. That's not for me.
Oh, yeah. That whole thing was definitely
so,
not
like, seeing a fucking object like a car just completely disappear and then reappear is so scary.
And that's what I'm saying. That very last scene where they like,
it's cool. It's good.
It's him. It's zooming in on his face. You get like the like quick flash of the skull, right? And then it's just the car getting pulled out, and like that's like the last like 5 seconds. That's it. The version up on Amazon like did not even have a credit scene after that. It was literally just like as the car's getting pulled out, it just ends. And I was like, "Fuck yeah, that's the way you end a movie. That's cool. Great. That's good ending. Stuff."
Yeah. Everyone's dead. Like, they still died. Like, there's no coming back. You know, it's a very dark ending. And the money's gone. The money's totally worthless. It's got eaten by the swamp. You know. One other thing. Actually, first backing up a little bit, because I just still can't believe. When you were watching it, when she goes into the basement in the fruit cellar, what did you think she was going to see when she turned the mom around? Like, were you like thinking she was dead? Did you think she was like alive?
Yeah, no. By that point, I was like, oh, okay. Like, he has his like mummified body of his mother here, or like an effigy or something. I actually did think it was like. I at that point I was like, oh, okay, like it is like the mummified version of his mom. Like, he did.
Okay.
Because like he like stuffed birds and shit. I was like, all right, fine. Once he carried her down the stairs, right? That's when I was like, oh, okay,
she
like this is
extreme dead. Yeah.
Well, not even that. I was like, oh, like that's 100% like a mummy or something, right? Like, I was like, all right, cool, fine.
Which did that end the scene of him carrying her out to the trunk, like the dead body? Did that bother you? Not really
particularly.
No. I thought for sure that it would upset you because of like the doll, you know, like mannequin thing.
Yeah,
I just figured it would bother you more.
It's again, it literally comes down to like the doll thing for me is like the closer it is to like looking like a person and like being a person versus like a dead body.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Because like especially like wax museums get me, right? Because like their skin's waxy and like it's such a weird, it's a simulacrum, right? It's like just a weird like, oh, like this is like trying to be
near
a human
approximation. Yeah. Right.
And it weirds me out. I don't like that. But like, I mean, if it's like, I don't know, she looked like the mom at least looked like the chocolate woman from SpongeBob, and I was like, hey, wow, like, I don't know, man. Fine, sure. Like,
yeah, I think that's probably what the chocolate woman from SpongeBob
was inspired by. Yeah. I guess so. That's weird, huh? I never really thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is so influential. I mean, it can't be understated just how much this movie changed horror and like everything, pop culture in general.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So, okay.
Do we finally want to get into the 98 one?
Is there anything else specific to this movie you want to talk about before?
I can't remember whether it's in this version or the 98 version, but like when the sister goes to look at the bed and there's like
a big divot. Yeah, it's in both of them.
Yeah. There's some show that like did like a version of that later. I mean, obviously, like many homages to this.
Yeah.
There was a show that did like an homage to this, and it was a comedy show. They were like, "Hey, I worked hard for that depression, okay?" And like as soon as I saw it here, I was like, "Me, so me, for real, in my rock girl era, so me."
Rock girl era, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just wanted to mention those. That was a fun little tidbit for me, I guess.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, okay. I asked you to go into the 98 one with an open mind. And I guess I should have given you more context of like how I wanted to watch this or how I thought it would be interesting to watch this because
okay.
So
it took me about like
we're about to argue.
Minutes.
We're about to argue.
No.
We're about to
we're not going to argue.
We're going to argue. I'm going to argue. This is my avatar.
We're not argue. Stop making this an argument.
Stop judging me. Stop jumping down my throat. It will be if you're like, this is dog shit. Okay. Why'd they remake this?
I do not think it's dog shit. I think it's far from it. Okay, so I'll tell you what I enjoyed from it and then what I like didn't like as much. I enjoyed that it was like essentially shot for shot, with a few sort of creative liberties taken at certain points. I feel like those creative liberties weren't my favorite, and we can talk about like the specific instances of that.
Okay.
And it may be detracted from the movie as a whole because of that, but I really, really enjoyed, especially near the beginning, how they changed some of like the intonation of the lines and like the ways that the characters interact. And it's funny to see it in like modern day or like closer to modern day while still like holding up as well as it did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like the story, you mean, like the basic plot beats. Yeah.
Well, and like the way that the characters talk, right?
Like,
oh
yeah, true.
A lot of turns of phrases, right? Like watching the 1960s version, like there were a lot of turns of phrases. I'm like, oh, like this is old. This is like whatever. Like they talk this way. That's old timey land, right?
And
like
now
black
you're
and white,
like,
of course. That's how they talk.
This is the 90s. Yeah.
Right. And then in the 90s one, I was like,
damn,
it was like just pushing the bounds of anachronism, right? I was like almost like, that's a little weird, you know. Yeah. Like especially with like the salesman, the car salesman. First time a customer ever pressured a salesman, or like high pressured a salesman. Yeah. Well, he doesn't even say pressured. He says like high pressured or something. It's such like a weird specific phrase. I was like, that's just like, it's odd. People don't say it anymore for sure. But I'm like, I guess you can kind of get away with it. And like maybe that's just from like my removal from the time that it was released. But yeah.
So
now, what did you want me to get out of this that I might have missed?
I think this is a really fascinating experiment. Like, I think this movie is good enough on its own, but there's no way for it to be on its own. And I think that not just like, you know, there's tons of remakes every day, but none of them remake a movie to the same extent. And you don't remake movies as famous as Psycho, right? Like, there's no remake of Jaws.
Right. Yeah.
There's no, you know, there's no remake of The Godfather. There's no remake, you know, like, it's very rare for movies that are like iconic like that to get remade. And so the choice, go ahead, go on.
Do you want to know what it reminded me of? And this is another one I kind of want to see if you can guess.
Is it
something like hugely famous, maybe not necessarily a movie, right? We've definitely talked about the movie version of it though, being made in modern day, but keeping the same script. Script being, I guess, the important.
Are we talking about like a Shakespeare adaptation?
Yeah, we're talking about a Shakespeare adaptation. Yeah.
Are you talking about Henry V, or are we talking about Othello, or neither of those?
Nope. Not a movie we've talked about on the podcast, but a movie that I know you've seen and I've seen as well.
Oh,
I feel
Romeo
like we've
plus
talked
Juliet?
about the movie before.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like So when you're watching a remake, it like, and I'm setting aside the like legacy sequel kind of like things that we're in right now, where it's like we're bringing back some of the original cast, but it's like an updated version where, you know, the main character is the daughter of the main character from the original movie, and like whatever stupid shit.
Right, yeah, whatever. That's totally different. Yeah.
But like a true remake, right? Like Romeo plus Juliet is like an interpretation, right?
Right. It's just like the closest analog I could think of. Right?
Sure.
But this was like shot for shot.
That's what I mean.
Crazy.
Which is so interesting of a choice. Like, why would you do that? It really like immediately like, and I think you can't watch this movie, right? Even knowing, like, even if you hadn't seen the original Psycho, you can't watch it without knowing some of the iconography, right? And so you're kind of anticipating it. Now, I think it's interesting that you hadn't seen and you didn't know, like, some of the twists. Like, that's interesting. So, you know, maybe watching the second one first would have done something fucked up to your brain. I don't know. But, like...
Right. Yeah. Right. Like, now that I've seen them both, that, I think, would have been really, really cool to, like, like watch the 98 version first and then watch the 1960 version.
I feel like it... I don't know. It's... We'll have to find a secret third person who has seen none of these and doesn't know any of them. And put it out to
We also need somebody who hasn't watched Avatar The Last Airbender, the animated series, but has watched the M. Night Shyamalan movie. And you know what? They can even watch the Netflix adaptation, too. That's fine. Whatever. Yeah.
In that order.
But then we have to get them to watch the animated version. And then we can dissect their brain.
But so...
I mean, talk to them about it, right?
Put them through the fucking CAT scan. But no,
all 5 of them. Anyway,
I think that because it's such a like devoted recreation in this way, or like cover version of the original, the choices that are made to distinguish it or like update it, like all of that really jumps out at you because it's otherwise imitating the original. So like the delivery of the lines that are like kind of like maybe a little sassier, or like the Marion character. I read this because I was fascinated by the 98 version, and I was trying to read a lot about it, and it's very hard to find any academic writing about it because people are like, oh, this movie's dog shit, why would they remake Psycho? And like,
that's interesting. Is it really seen as that bad?
Yes, people think this is one of the worst movies ever made. Yeah.
No shit. Really?
Swear to God. Swear to God. Look it up on Letterboxd right now. Look up the 98 version. Look at its rating. It's bad.
Because, like, I was going to say, like I said earlier, there's, like, things that I maybe didn't appreciate or, like, disagreed with, but none that I would necessarily say are, like...
No, this movie's not
wholeheartedly bad.
Right? I think to say that, I think you're fucking stupid and you shouldn't be allowed to watch movies. Like, you should be banned for a year if you think that. So
I don't know about that, but I think you're like, you know, being obtuse, right? If you're saying that this movie is just straight up bad.
Yeah, it's like the idea of like, well, it ruined the original. You know, this remake like ruined it for me. Like, you ruined Star Wars by putting women in it.
That's why this is your Avatar. Okay, all right.
This isn't really. I mean, like, I
could get how this could be somebody's Avatar, though.
Yes, thank you.
100%.
So, like, you know, the choices of, like, all of the characters are so different, even though their words are the same. Like, casting Vince Vaughn, for example, and this is where I wanted to bring in that conversation, just looping back to a tab
Which
we
one was
opened
Vince Vaughn?
10 minutes ago.
Who's Vince Vaughn?
You don't know who Vince Vaughn is? He's Norman Bates. He's in Zoolander.
Okay. Yeah,
he's like he's in Dodgeball. He's like one of Will Ferrell's guys.
Let's continue the conversation.
He's like a guy. He's like a, you know, his kind of persona back then, like in the 90s, was very much like, he's one of the Wedding Crashers. He's like the Owen Wilson.
Yeah. No, I know who it is. I just needed to know which character it was.
Gotcha.
Like, I've recognized these,
I
recognize these actors in like other things. It's not that I didn't. No, it's just good. Like if you say like someone's name, I don't know this guy. I don't know his name.
All
like,
right.
He's just guy on screen, right?
Fair.
It's like, oh yeah, I've seen him with the WoW guy too. Yeah, sure, why not? You know?
Like, his persona, his screen persona, is just very like frat bro, wisecracking. Like, that's his thing. And
Yeah,
so
this was a departure, at least from
that's
anything
what I
that
mean.
I've like known him for at all.
Yes. And
Really
so
interesting too.
yeah, go ahead.
He plays it like a creepy laundromat owner.
Yes.
Like those were like the vibes I got from him. Like
Yes.
constantly, I was like, oh, okay, this guy like owns a laundromat, kills people, and like drops them in like vats of lye or whatever. I was like, okay,
Right.
cool. Like,
Right. Right.
But he plays it so like obliquely, like, oh, like I am sort of like creepy and odd and weird.
Unlike Norman, who is just kind of like
Right.
mild-mannered and like unassuming. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting the I don't want to say dichotomy, but like it's two different takes of like the same character, right?
Yes.
And they're not existing at the same time, so it's
You're
not really
getting
dichotomy,
it.
but it's
You're
like
starting to get it.
Lane, I do get it. Like that's
I know.
one of the things I appreciated, right? Like I appreciated the
Yeah.
different takes on the characters. I actually like really like that.
But like, it's not just that they're different takes. It's like the first one informs the second one, right? Like you can't watch this movie without thinking of the original. Not just in it was the original,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
so iconic. Like you have to synthesize them both. It's like the first one is like kind of haunting this movie, and so like the
Right.
choice to like Anne Hesh, who plays Marion Crane in the '98 one.
Mm-hmm.
She was a lesbian. She's deceased now, but whereas like in the first movie, right, she like Janet Leigh plays Marion as like buxom, whatever, voluptuous blonde, like whatever, she's sexy. But in this movie, I mean, she's still pretty, but like, you know, she's not as like male gazy. She's got the pixie cut. She's kind of like, you know what I mean?
So bringing birds into the '60s version, she plays it like a starlet, right?
A starling?
Where it's like she's
Or
starling. Fuck.
did you mean bird?
Well, yes. Starling is the bird. Starlet is that
Like
is that like literally just like a female star or something? from,
Yeah,
like, the
people use
50s?
it to people use that to mean like a hot, usually actress.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
Yeah, she's playing
like
it-
hot
yes.
50s, 60s actress. Yeah.
Right.
I did mean to make a bird pun there. I thought starlet was a type of
It's
bird. I'm
okay.
sorry, watchers.
It's
I'm
okay.
so sorry.
It's okay, Ricky. I've been hard on you this episode.
Baby, as soon as I was like, no, I like the different takes of the characters. You're like, baby, I've been too harsh on you, actually. Oh man, no, but yeah. So like, I think the two different takes on them, because like like you said, like the sort of sassier takes,
Mhm.
especially like how she plays around with the like old guy that comes in and sort of like
Yeah.
flirts with her.
She's like rolling her eyes
Yeah.
outright in this one, whereas in the old one,
Yeah,
she's like kind of
yeah.
plays along or like kind of like humors him more.
Well, she does that very like polite, like, oh well, I'm a single woman, but you know,
Yeah, right.
maybe
right.
not one for like, you know,
Yeah.
your affairs or like whatever, like
Right,
yada yada.
She's also
Which
much. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
they updated a lot, right? It feels very updated to the time that it was released.
Mhm.
And like you can, I feel like a lot of like the direction, specifically around characters, does sort of update them, and it makes them feel more realistic for the time that it's being released. And like,
Yeah.
since that's closer to now, it feels more realistic to now.
Yeah.
Like when you're watching the '60s version, there's always that sort of like, not nagging feeling, but it's like, oh, like this is distinctly like
The 60s.
an older horror movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. The '98 version doesn't really have that.
Right.
And it's using the exact same words. Like,
Yeah.
that's
it's
what's
cool.
crazy to me. It's the exact same words.
It's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah.
So like,
And like the same like shots and same frames and everything. And in like
Yeah.
as much as they can to like, maybe not the nth degree. And then they do make like some small changes. But again,
Sure.
get into that. Go on.
I have so much to say about this movie. It's crazy. So, okay, jumping back to the like 60s-ness of it, something that we haven't talked about. The color, right? So like in the 60s version, it's
Yeah.
very like, obviously it's black and white, but then it's also very like shadowy and like kind of like, you know, more subtle in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
right? It's more tasteful as a result. The things that she
Yes.
wears, right, Marion wears, kind of seem to our eyes pretty tasteful. She's wearing like long businessy dresses and whatnot. She wears like
Right.
darker color clothes. But then in this movie, in the '98 version, right? Number one, it's all in color, so you can see the grime in their motel. You can tell that like the Bates Motel is like really run down. It doesn't just look like abandoned or like kind of like neglected. It's like gross, you know.
Right.
Her outfits, everybody's outfits, just kind of like color them a little bit more. Like obviously, Marion in this movie, she's wearing these like crazy pops of color that kind of make her seem more just like not so classy, right? Like not that she whatever, like not to like denigrate this character, but like in the original it's very much like you get the sense like she's a 60s, you know, like proper woman. And then in this one in the 90s it's like, oh
even though like it starts off with like her having an affair, right?
No,
like,
totally.
That is like the very opening scene. And it's like the exact same in both of them, but like just the way that they're played is very, very different.
Viggo Mortensen.
It lends.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say it lends very different tone to the characters, and like it sets your mind up for like different expectations.
Yeah, he plays the Sam character in this. Did you recognize that actor?
Do you know he broke his toe?
Yes. Okay, I was wondering if you. Oh, I wondered if you would know who that was. He takes such an interesting choice of like playing him as a cowboy, like kind of like a sleazy guy, whereas in the original, like the guy's wearing suits the whole time. Like he's like, you know, it's very, it makes the movie so sleazy. Vince Vaughn obviously like is walking sleaze, like he just looks sleazy. Anyway, so the color adds so much to it, and obviously we should talk about the shower scene in this one, since there are some noticeable differences, but did the aesthetics of it remind you of anything else, any other movies? Maybe from around this time period?
Not wholly? No, not really.
Did it remind you of American Psycho at all? The bright red blood on like brilliant white.
I guess so. I haven't seen American Psycho since in at least 10 years, Lane. Okay. I'll say that. So it's just fine. It's not one that I've wanted to revisit either. So it's like
that's fair. That movie is so iconic, but it's a few years later, you know, and like that movie has like, that aesthetic is I think very prevalent, and like that's a thing that you think of when you think of that movie, and you see it in this movie. And it just, it's shocking, it's sterile, it's gross, you know.
I did not like the shower scene as much in the 98 version compared to the 60 version.
It's a lot more violent. It's like a lot more, like it feels violent. Yeah.
It feels violent. There's a lot of like cuts, a lot of like rapid cuts. There's a lot of rapid cuts in the original though. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess in this one they cut to like
a storm.
During like scenes of violence, they'll cut to like random surreal. like a cow or like like a cow in like headlights or something, and it's like I get it, it's evocative for sure. I just don't like it that much, like just not for me. Sorry.
Okay.
Also, the camera angle that we take a few times is like not great. So in the 60s version,
the nudity, is that what you're thinking of? Or
well, that and also it looks like a bundled up old woman in the 60s version, right?
This one is a lot more
right. In the 98 version it's very much so like, oh, that's not his mom, that's just him.
But here's the thing is like,
and maybe that's because I already knew the twist.
That's what, well, I don't think it's just that. I think it's also like okay, so this movie's so fucking interesting. If you're like, oh, I'm not gonna watch a stupid fucking movie for this podcast, watch the movie. I'm so serious. So like,
it's $3.99 on Amazon, and that was the only way I could find to watch it. So
it's free $99 on the Pirate Bay. Okay, so like,
I don't recommend torrenting anything ever because I am a law-abiding citizen.
We should watch that movie. Gerard Butler and Denzel? Am I making that up? Anyway, so...
But wait, what? Law-abiding citizen?
Yeah, I think so.
What movie? Is that what it's called?
I think that's a movie.
Oh, okay.
I might be totally making that up, but... okay, so... That's the thing what I'm saying with, like, how it informs the way you watch this movie now. It's like... like I don't know. This is gonna sound crazy, but like imagine a movie that tells the story of Jesus. I'm about to describe the last temptation of Christ, I think, but like a movie that
Okay.
tells the story, like a really famous story, like the story of Jesus, and then it kind of
Yeah.
plays on your expectations like that, right? Like it maybe it
Veggie
like
Tales.
not even that, but like a very faithful recreation of it that just diverts it a couple ways, right? Not like a
Veggie
complete.
Tales.
Take me seriously for once in your life, Ricky.
I actually am taking you seriously here. VeggieTales does a pretty good job of introducing at least like a lot of the same concepts and
but
ideas,
it's not subversive.
and like the
it's
same
not subverting
storylines.
anything. It's just like making adapting.
I
it for
wouldn't
kids.
expect to see vegetables in this situation,
I'm gonna kill you.
Lane.
I'm gonna actually kill you.
Broccoli, celery, gotta be VeggieTales. She'll like VeggieTales. All right, sorry, go on.
I'm taking out my 10-inch long kitchen knife.
Oh, I thought that was going somewhere else for a second. Like. Anyway, go on.
So, but yeah, like if you're thinking of like a very incredibly famous thing, right? And
Right.
you're making it, right? There's no way
Yeah.
that you can make it and not have people thinking about the original thing that they already know. And so
Right, yeah.
leaning into, well, like obviously people know that it's not his mom and it's him. Like leaning into that, or like Vince Vaughn's portrayal, which is like very sinister from the jump, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Like, is that because he's just like, well, I'm interpreting my character differently? Or is it because it's like, there's no way of coming into this and not thinking that he's, sinister, and so he's going to lean into that. There's just those choices being made, I think, are intentional.
Yeah.
And so the shower scene, like, part of what I think is so interesting in that part, not just like the changes, right? Like the change in the lighting and like some of the angles and things like that. But I tried to look this up. Like I said, I was trying to look up stuff about this movie and could not find fucking anyone talking about this movie academically at all. But like, in your version, did the like strings soundtrack start when she was writing the letter in the hotel, the 98 version?
Oh god.
Almost like a jump scare.
I don't remember. I don't remember at all.
Do you remember in this movie at all, like the music coming in at weird times or playing weird, or like sound effects? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
almost kind of comforting in a way.
Sure.
At least in terms of like, oh, okay, like I don't know, maybe that's weird, but like having seen the first movie and like being able to relate a lot of these like sound effects, which I've heard throughout time, and been like, oh, okay, it's all this movie, all of it's coming from this movie, and then like, because I watch these in between days, right? So like watching the 98 and going like I don't know, just hearing the same soundtrack, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like we're kind of like back on track essentially.
Sure,
I guess like with the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's so they play the music at different times. I guess like the like doesn't happen at the same points. It happens at those points of violence, but it also happens at other times in the movie. And
right. Yes. Yeah.
Even like when she's writing the letter, or not letter, but she's like writing the math in the 98 version when she's like in the hotel room right before she takes the shower. She's like doing the math of like 40,000 minus whatever.
Right.
That music starts playing and it sounds like the sound effects from the original too. Now again, I could totally have torrented some bullshit that like, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that that's legitimately what, and so it just sounds like the original.
I might check in on that. If you get some messages from me in the following days,
please do.
It'll be about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I could not find anything, but like it was so striking. And like at the end, okay, do you remember at the end with the psychiatrist, like the music coming in and kind of even drowning out what they were talking about, and like, did this?
It wasn't like drowning them out or anything.
Okay, I am going to the Pirate Bay right now to see if I'm crazy, if I like actually accidentally like downloaded some like fake rip.
I don't think you're crazy. Yeah. I'll pull up the 98 version too, and I will let you know.
No, I don't want free nude adult webcams. Come on. Yeah, no, this is just like the actual movie. Okay, I'm not crazy. So the music is just played differently. Like the score is played at different times and played like in that scene where she's writing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I did pull it up, and like the music was on in the background, but like not overpowering.
At the end, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. That was just the easiest one for me to check.
Sure.
Right away.
Sure. It just it's not like overpowering, but it's almost at the same mix, like level in the mix as the voices.
Right.
And that's what's so weird, because it does sound strange, because it's almost competing with their dialogue. And it's like, it just feels very meta. Like this movie's just very meta, I guess, in how it's being like, do you remember this original movie? What do you think of this? Like it's in your face about it. And they play that music and the stabbing sounds from the original in the scene where she's writing the note with the numbers on it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's super jarring. And like, why would they do that and play all of those sounds and then have her do the shower scene and then play the same, updated soundtrack and like stabbing sounds and whatever? It's very much like haunting and weird and just like, it's fascinating. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to talk about this movie, but this movie's really fascinating.
No. I totally get where you're coming from with it. And I mean, like you said with like the bird thing that we were talking about earlier, like you don't have to get it to be compelled by it, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to like sort of even just like explain at a base level like why it's compelling, right? And you don't even kind of have to. You can just like bring up like, hey, isn't this cool? Like, wasn't this just a neat thing that they did?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I just think that the whole exercise is just really interesting to be like, I'm going to remake with the same script this classic movie that lots of people have seen and lean into the fact that everybody has seen it and is going to know what's going on. And like subvert it or play on it or like do something interesting with it.
It's funny that like so many people hate this, and it's funny that you would bring up that so many people hate this, because the one thing that they could have really easily done, to like subvert expectations would be to change the ending, right? In like any way, shape, or form to change. And like
people would have thought it was sacrilegious if they did that.
Oh,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
well, it would have been complete dog shit, right? And honestly, I think that their criticisms would at least been a little bit more valid, or more structured or grounded, because, like I said, like this, I did not think it was bad. I did not like it as much as the original.
Fair.
But I liked the original a lot. And also it was like a hemisphere moment where I was like, oh my god, like this is where all this comes from.
Yeah.
It was like a Yggdrasil moment, right? Like I connected to the Erdtree. I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like this is where everything goes? This is where it all comes from? The roots of all horror? Which was just like, I don't know.
It's cool.
That was like, yeah, that was like explosive. Whereas the 98 version was just a kind of like, oh, I guess I'm watching this one too. So like maybe not as much weight there.
I mean maybe because
not
you
as much weight there.
had only just seen the original the first time,
right?
Like that's always I guess a possibility. I just I think that this as a movie on its own, I think it's good, but like as a document, as like a commentary, as like an experiment, an art film, like I think it's just fucking so fascinating. I can't believe how I like have the urge. I actually went back and rewatched a lot of scenes of it, which I almost never do for movies. Like immediately after watching them, I'll like rewind. It was so striking.
So I only have it for 2 days, so I was actually probably going to do that tomorrow, because like I did enjoy like a lot of it, and because like the other one I can watch like again whenever, whatever. It's a classic, yada yada. This one I'm like, fuck, like kind of got to make the most of it while I've got it.
Hell yeah.
Can we talk about the stabbings of the detective?
in this one.
I liked the detective in the 98 version a lot. I like the
Yeah.
detective in both of the versions.
Did you?
The
Did you?
98 guy I've seen before. I know who he is.
This movie is a.
It's a treasure trove. It's got a bunch of fucking like.
It's a Boogie Nights
like,
reunion.
guys.
It's Julianne Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh,
William
it
H.
is.
Macy.
It is. Yeah.
And William H. Macy plays the detective. He's the guy who shoots his wife. Spoilers in Boogie Nights. And he's from Fargo.
They shouldn't be listening to this pod if they haven't
If you
heard the Boogie Nights pod.
The Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights. He's from Fargo too. Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen John Wick?
Yeah, I've seen all of them.
He's the one you killed, the Boogie Man. That's what I.
The
Boogie Nights. His casting is. See, this is what I mean. Okay, William H. Macy, right? He's kind of dopey. He's got like a dopey screen presence, right?
Yes.
Like he's like a cuck. Yeah. So like him playing the detective in this, it like just changes because in the original the detective's kind of like, he's a 40s PI, right? Like he's like
right.
He's played by Martin Balsam, who's in like 12 Angry Men and stuff like that. In this, like he's kind of a a schmuck, and so it's like
which. Again, I think feels like more appropriate for the time, right? Like you would expect a 98 like PI to be a schmuck.
Yeah.
Like who the fuck wants to do that shit?
Well, and like the way that he and Vince Vaughn interact, it's so much more scary because like Vince Vaughn's huge. Also, he's not like, he doesn't seem like you could take him.
Their dynamic is like entirely changed in this one. It's so radically different, and like. Especially when like he was asking about like the mother and everything, and he's like, oh, like he'd save me a lot of legwork, like a whole lot of that stuff. It's like, ooh, buddy, like I wouldn't push him too far. Like I said, Vince Vaughn is playing like he seems like a fucking like homicidal
rapist. He seems
rapist. Laundromat worker is what I said before. Especially like the way that he plays around with like holding like
his dick when he's peeping through the window.
Well, no, that I did not. That's like
crazy.
Actually.
Yeah.
But no, when he has like the linens that he was talking about, how he has to change all the linens and everything, and he sort of like just I don't know the way that the actor interacts with that and like self-soothes with it almost is like so interesting and cool. It's just like I don't know, it's a lot of like really interesting levels to it.
When he's eating too, he eats so fucking weird in this movie. He's like double fisting pretzels. Yeah. You're like, and it seems like compulsive almost, like he's like gotta do it. Yeah.
The bird scene seems weirder with him, and like I'll say that like a lot of the lines maybe had different impact.
Totally.
It almost seemed like some of the words he had to get out in like a fervor, like he couldn't control them.
Yes, totally, yeah.
Which was like it's so different from the first one, not in a bad way either.
No, it's just cool.
Just like,
it's interesting to compare.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie. The reason that this movie exists is to be like, compare me to the original, whereas a remake is often like, in like other like Hollywood
it wants to
remakes,
stand by itself.
Yeah, it's like, don't compare me to the original because I probably won't hold up, but. This is not, it's very much putting it out there for, first and foremost. It's so interesting. So, William H. Macy, okay, drawing us back to American Psycho. Have you ever heard, do you remember Willem Dafoe in that movie? Like he plays the detective who's kind of on to Christian Bale.
Oh, yeah, I kind of remember. He doesn't he like pull up and like, talk to Bale a little bit out of the car.
He has a few scenes with him. Yeah. So
vaguely. Yeah.
I don't know how true this trivia is, but people often talk about in that movie that the director kind of instructed Dafoe to like shoot the scenes of him talking to Christian Bale multiple times. One, as like one time where he doesn't think he did anything, one time where he thinks he did all the murders, and one time where, he's not sure either way. And then cut them all together to like give you this like uncertain,
real sort of like shifty, uncertain.
Yeah, ambiguity. Yeah. And in this, just comparing, the original, the detective doesn't seem like he's on to Norman at all. In this movie, William H. Macy is on Norman. Like he is like super like accusatory and like suspicious from the jump. And again, it just like adds so much more like of a sinister vibe to it. And then when he, dies, it's still goofy. You know, the rear projection, like there's parts of camp I think in this movie, but like
Yeah.
the use of
So that seems pretty campy and like over the top. The slashes beforehand where like
yeah, it's
you
like
see
an
it like
X.
on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a bit much. Like gratuitous
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
When he's falling backwards, it looks goofier. It looks like he's falling for way, way longer than he should be.
I think that's
I
part
don't
of
know.
because not you, the audience would lend more like suspension of disbelief to the 60s because it's like, well, it's the 60s.
Right.
They had to shoot
Yes.
it that way.
100%.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but that's
No, yeah, yeah.
interesting to keep it that way in the
Yeah.
in the 90s, you know? Like,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Again, so that's something that I feel like maybe they could have updated, right? Like, uh, I feel like I don't know. It's tough, especially with like discussions about like, oh, like this is a shot for shot remake, and it's like, okay, so
but it's not,
what?
you know, like we've said. Like,
But it's
you know,
not right. But it's not, yeah, because they changed stuff. So it's like, well, what do we want to change? How do we want to change it? It's like, well, we have this new technology. Do we want to embrace that? Do we want to sort of like go more for what like the original vision was? Do we want to like homage the original? Do we want to homage the original's vision? Like, there's like a lot of different like ways that they can go with it, and
yeah.
I don't know. That one just didn't really hit it home for me. That one,
But
it
so-
was like, eh.
But so why do you think they kept it that way?
I think it's definitely like a striking scene in the original, and they wanted it to be striking in this one. There's obviously ways that they could have filmed it where, with like I don't know, like vests. I'm not gonna get into like the technical know-how of like how they could have shot this better,
Sure.
but
They could have trucked
they could
the
have
camera
done it.
differently.
Yeah, they could have done it so that I don't know, it looked slightly more realistic, right? And like
Totally.
that is like just from a base level, that is well within the realms of possibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Why they wouldn't? I don't know. I mean, like stylistically, I don't know what they were trying to maintain there. I guess is what I'll say.
Yeah. I guess for me, part of it is because it's such an iconic shot, you know, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
think it's
yeah.
also I think that the surreality of it is
Yeah.
part
yeah,
of it. Like they also the one kind of part of it that they change in this one is the like the surreal imagery that they kind of like flash in, like we talked about the cow, and then there's also like
Mhm.
a woman with a blindfold or a mask or something on that like turns to the camera.
Yeah.
So like it, you know, having this like super outdated technology and like William H. Macy kind of going like whoa, I think just adds to like how bizarre it is, and you know the
Bizarre is a
bizarreness
good word. Yeah.
of that character's death and like what the character must have been
Mhm.
feeling in that moment. You know, of
Mhm.
like we talked about, it's kind of a POV, right? Of
Yeah.
you know, of Norman kind of killing this guy, and so adding to that like kind of bizarre, like I don't want to say vertigo because it's another Hitchcock movie, but like you know the way that the rear projection works is just like disorienting, and
Yeah.
so
For the birds, Hitchcock.
So I feel like there's a very compelling reason to keep it kind of old and silly looking, because it's so surreal. Like it's, you know, so
Yeah, yeah. I feel like also part of the casting for the detective had to be like they had to be like, oh, okay, like that scene is sort of surreal over the top. Like we're going to cast someone that can not only play it to that, but like it's gonna look goofy while dying, right? Like
right.
just straight
Yeah.
up. But he has to be likable. He has to be likable, like sort
Right.
of off the get.
Mhm.
And he is. He fulfills both of those like really super well. So
Yeah. So like, right. Some of the reaction to this movie is that Vince Vaughn is super miscast, right? Because like you would think of Vince Vaughn or you would think of Norman as like a, you know, a gay guy or like effeminate or like non-threatening or meek or whatever. And it's like
mhm.
the movie loses so much in the casting if you just mimic the original, because they're kind
Yeah,
of going,
100%.
you know.
Yeah.
So it forces you to think like, well, in the original, the guy's actually not likable. He's kind of a dick when he's introduced, you know, the detective.
He's a dick all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
he's kind of in it for the money. Like, he doesn't really seem to care that much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, wait. Wait, were you talking about the innkeeper, the Bates, or
No,
or
I was talking about
the detective?
The detective is on.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say Bates is like kind of a dickhead, like in both versions, but
yeah,
in the one where he's like meek and pitiable, it's like more acceptable, right?
Right. Well, and he has these moments of like snake-like kind of like venom. Like it'll just like escape him to be like he'll like snipe at somebody and, you know, very like put them in their place in this like seething kind of way. Whereas in this, he's just like a dickhead.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Are we good to talk about what I think is like the last big change of the movie, which would be the mom reveal?
Oh yes, that Chris
Yeah.
and I watched this together. Shout out Christopher. And when we saw the mom and the bird, the big ass bird tank, we were like, ooh. Like we were on an amusement park ride or something. We were all excited. It's interesting.
I don't know, man.
You didn't like it?
I didn't like it.
Really? Oh, I thought it was so fun.
The scream wasn't as good. The hitting the lamp out of the way wasn't as good.
Hey, don't fucking talk about Julianne like that. You watch
I'm sorry.
mouth.
I'm just I'm speaking my truth. The Norman Bates like revealing himself. He didn't say I'm Norma Bates. Him getting bonked in the back of the head, not as good.
Yeah,
it's like fair. There were just a number of things I was like, oh, this kind of misses the mark. I didn't like all the birds there either. I'll be completely honest with you.
Really? I thought the birds made it so interesting.
Bates straight up says earlier, I don't know anything about birds. And like, I feel like that's like, that makes sense. And like, I feel like it's kind of on a level creepier for him to have have little to no knowledge of like caretaking of birds or like birds' habits or whatever, but like still go out and then like taxidermy them, which means that he's just like going around finding dead stuff in like the 60s version versus the 98 version where it's like, oh, okay, like, yeah, he's got birds. Like, I don't know.
Oh, he's killing the birds. He's buying the birds to kill them, right?
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, I get that, but it's like, okay, I don't know, just not as impactful. I just it was like, all right,
okay,
cool.
Yeah,
he's got birds. He stuffs them. All right, fine. Like, whatever.
It's very Silence of the Lambs. The venture into the basement. You know, it's very like they very much ape Silence of the Lambs in that way. I like
the first one's really well done with like the stairs and everything.
Yeah, it's
super fucking cool. Yeah. Second one just not as.
There's a lot
it just
going
didn't
on.
Hit. Yeah.
There's like the jugs of the chemicals and like shelves and things, and she has to walk through like 2 doors, and I can understand. I like, again, it's the comparison is actually the awarder of joy in this one very narrow instance. I feel like there's so much fun to talk about these. And
no, I do like comparing it. Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, I think Julianne, she adds such a interesting dimension to the Lila character as well, because in the original she's kind of like meek, right? Like she's very 60s, like she doesn't have sass. And in this one she's very like forward and aggressive and, you know, just less of like a damsel in distress. And so
yeah. In the 60s version she's almost like eerily calm about the whole situation.
Neither of them cry when they're like, did my sister die? Like, neither of them like end up crying about it, which is interesting.
I don't know. It always kind of struck me that they were just in shock, but also just like almost like they had seen that as a foregone conclusion. And like they're like, I'm getting to the fucking bottom of this though. Like,
but you don't get it as much in the original. It's just very she just doesn't have the same kind of like drive that, you know, you would expect in the 90s, right? And so I like
got it a little bit in the original.
Yeah,
like just and like especially like putting it in context, like the way that she like talks back to the like the inspector and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, like Like she's getting answers. Like she's not taking shit. And like that's something that's like definitely like uncharacteristic for the time. And it's like I was like, oh okay, like fuck, true. Man, like that's cool. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Whereas like the '98 version, like her being a little sassy, like totally makes sense. And like the recontextualization of the whole thing is like, oh okay, like this all it jives well. It's jelly, you know.
If it ain't jelly, or if it ain't gelling, it's not Jello, or whatever he says.
Yeah. The first one I think is like a product placement in the '60s. He says like a specific product.
No, that's not. That's a generic.
Oh, is
generic
it?
Product. Yeah, Jello is the not generic one. Anyway.
Oh, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah, because who knows what aspic is anymore? Like nobody.
Yeah. That's a better example than people always say Kleenex instead of like tissues when they bring up like the replacement thing. Really. It's like nobody calls it a fucking Kleenex. Nobody does that. That's not it.
Yeah.
But like Jello, boom, 100%.
Yeah. Q-tip is my go-to.
Q-tip. Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Can I get a cotton swab on a stick, please?
Go fuck yourself, buddy. How about that, huh? Like, I'll give you a Q-tip and you're gonna like it.
So, remember in
Lane, if you're not gonna say this quick, I got other stuff with the '98 I want to talk about.
I do too. But hang on.
Other changed scenes. Lane.
Remember in Sicario when he gives that guy like the most violent wet willy of all time, like criminal assault via wet willy?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Talking about Q-tips made me think of that. Sorry.
What the fuck?
I wanted to get that out there. Shout out Sicario. No. So. The one other scene, just while we're on the topic of my actual mom, Julianne Moore, the scene where she's going into the bedroom, like in the house at the end, they play the strings when she's going through the closet, which turns it into like a shocking jump scare, almost. And like, I feel like, again, that's just another kind of like, why are you playing this now? Like, there's nothing, when you're watching the movie the first time, there's nothing sinister about it. But then watching it the second time, you know, like, oh, we're getting to the part, like, where she's gonna find out that Vince Vaughn is actually the mom, you know? So, it's cool. And the bird sounds.
Yeah, no, it's cool and interesting. Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. I do want to say, the scene in the '60s version where what's his face, Sam, is talking to Bates, and they're like sort of across the counter, and he's like distracting him
in his face, like he's like superimposing on him,
and that works because of their character dynamics. In the second one, it's almost a little bit more homoerotic with it. The way that he like, because like Bates is like leaving, right, and he like sort of like grabs him by the stomach and like, sort of like walks him back a little bit. Yeah, he like leans in through the door. He like walks him back a bit. He's like, hey, come on, like let's just have a little talk. Yeah, like it's and it would only work because of like the new cast. It lends a whole new light to that whole conversation. And like just like it does have like homoerotic undertones, at least in the beginning when they first start talking, and like it's so like it's interesting how that's included. And then like the sort of more irateness that like Vince Vaughn shows and is like willing to show as it goes on.
Yeah.
As like that scene in particular goes on. It's really nice. It's really cool.
Well, and the physicality is different. Like in the original, you know, Norman is tall and kind of reedy, but like Sam is like stocky, you know, kind of like, you know, not buff, built, but like burly. Yeah. Whereas in this one, obviously, Vince Vaughn is very, like, tall and broad, and Viggo Mortensen is, like, kind of wiry. He's, like, not short, but he's, like, on the shorter side. He's kind of playing, like, more of, like, a slim, kind of sleazy guy. And so, he can't, like, physically impose onto Norman the same way. And his personality isn't like that either, like you're saying. It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really enjoyed that. Like I said, I like a lot of the like different character interactions with how they were casted differently. And how
stop arguing with me. Stop saying that this movie's so bad. Stop. Can you stop?
My bad.
Yeah, come on. Oh my god.
One of the cast changes I didn't like is the psychiatrist at the end. this guy sucks. Get him off the screen in the 98. I didn't like
Are
the
you
98 as much as the 60. Yep.
That's Robert
Yep,
Forster.
I did
You
not
can't
like the
say
98
that.
as 60. I don't care.
He's
Get
like
him off
one
the
of the
screen.
most
I don't care
famous
who he
fucking
is.
actors of all time. He's like a crazy character actor. He's in Twin Peaks and shit. That's
don't
crazy.
give a shit. I don't give a shit.
That's crazy.
I mean, like we
That's
talked
crazy.
about, like that scene at the end, already not great, right?
I think,
And I liked the performance that the 60 actor gave better than the 98 actor. Sorry. Not sorry, actually.
Stop. I don't think that his delivery or like his acting even fucking matters really in the scene because
No,
the
not
music
really.
is so loud. Like,
Bro,
the music,
it wasn't that loud.
I swear to God, it was. Like, if you were like a real true cinephile who watches movies and knew what you were talking about, you would know that the camera trucked across the screen and that the music was really loud at the end. It's so intrusive. Let me put it that way. It's like the music is at the same level as the dialogue, and so it sounds like the music is the dialogue at times. Like, it's just like blending in.
Right.
And so it becomes like, it's almost like a hand wave of like, do you even give a shit what he's saying? You know what he's saying. It's fine. Like, just feel the feelings of this weird ass music, because it's not just like the strings. There's like weird like guitar and like it sounds bizarre. Like it's crazy sounding. It's very postmodern. I don't know. And as someone who doesn't always love postmodern stuff, I found this just to be so fucking interesting. And I think Vince Vaughn does a good job in the final bit too, when he's like doing
final
the
bit was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, not as good as the original. Again, pretty good. I didn't like how long they flashed the skull at the end. Just a little bit too long. Sorry. Didn't like that they had credits at the end. Just a little bit too long. Sorry, while they're pulling the car out. I wanted that movie to end. I wanted to be able to walk out of the theater as soon as I see the fucking chain attached to the edge of that car pulling that shit out of the water, right? I want 5 seconds and I'm gone. I'm out of there. Cuts to black.
You weren't in the movie theater.
Wow.
Wow. You can hit pause. Like, you can stop it. You can hit the TV, right? You can hit the clicker and turn the TV off.
I did, but would have liked if it had done it for me,
Can you just admit that this movie is a 5-star masterpiece and just like
as Amazon recommends the Bates Hotel to me, and I'm like, I don't want to watch that.
Yeah,
shit.
Fuck that stupid show. I think it's fascinating. I think that this movie.
Yeah.
I think they should remake movies like this all the time. Like, I think that would be so interesting. I am one of the few people out there who thinks that, like, they should be remaking classic movies with updated shit all the time. Like Jaws. Like, I want the Jaws remake. Not Jaws Reborn. Not, like, whatever, Jaws the Beginning. Not, like, new Jaws where it's like, oh, I'm actually Jaws' son or whatever. Like, I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
I want, like, this, but Jaws.
Did I tell you that my English teacher remade Halloween? Like, shot for shot?
I don't know if you talked about it on mic, but you definitely told me about this.
Well, I'm talking about it on mic now. And he, like, showed it in class. And everyone was like, oh, cool. And he's like, don't you guys get it? Like, this is a shot-for-shot recreation of the original. And we were like, yeah, no, like, we get it.
Yeah, but like 15 years ago, that was like, cool.
Yeah, and he's like, this is my house. Like, I'm actually filming it at my house. Like, this is on location. And we were all like, yep. Cool. Like, what do you want from us, man?
So, one thing I'll say about this too, it's not like the director we should just talk about for like 2 minutes. Gus Van Sant, very accomplished filmmaker. He's not just like some douchebag making this movie. Like, he did Good Will Hunting, but he also did My Own Private Idaho and To Die For, Elephant. Some of these, like, Drugstore Cowboy, which is lesser liked, but a lot of like very
Paris Je t'aime.
Paris Je t'aime, yes.
Je t'aime. Fuck.
It's okay.
Je t'aime. Fuck. Is that French enough? Fuck. How do they say it?
I believe. Shit is merde in French.
Well, yeah, but like, how would if I was in France and I try to like speak French, they would say you uncultured fuck, right? Like,
Oh,
because,
sure,
you know,
sure.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. They have to speak in my, you know, fucking butcher tongue in order for me to understand.
It's true. Anyway, he's also a gay man. My Own Private Idaho, we will watch someday on this, for this podcast. But so just like, again, he's not just like some loser making this movie for money. Like, you know, I just think that adds a lot of, like, the queer kind of film theory read of this movie with all the, like, how Vince Vaughn is playing so straight and he's like such a straight character, a straight man, you know, all of those things I think inform this movie with an additional layer that just makes it even more interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm dismantling my soapbox. I'm slowly packing it up. You know, the crew is behind me.
Do you have any other thoughts
the
on the 98 versus 60, or just thoughts on both of the movies together?
I like this movie a lot more, the original Psycho, than I did the first time. I feel like I appreciated it more. Yeah. I watched it the first time, like, a couple of, like, 10 years ago, probably, and then watched it again not long after that, and then didn't watch it again a third time, or, you know, but, until now. But, yeah. I mean, it's just kind of one of those perfect movies, I think, that other than the very, very, you know, end psychiatrist bit, I don't think I would change a thing about it. But you know, yeah, it's unfortunately a perfect offensive movie. And I think this remake is kind of just an unbelievable object. Like, it's fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, have you ever seen a movie like that? Like, have you ever seen a movie that's like remade a whole other movie that's as big as that one, as Psycho?
Again, like, that's why I brought up
with the same words. They're saying the same words.
Right. Well, that's why I brought up Romeo plus Juliet, because they are saying the same words, but it's in like a modern context. Yeah. And that's super interesting to me. I love that movie. So like, I definitely really enjoy this one. The fact that it's shot for shot, and like I get that like Romeo and Juliet does not have a
text.
I mean, there's stage direction, but like it's there's no like movie that is like, this is Romeo and Juliet. So like you can't really make a remake in the same vein as Psycho, right? But like, that's the closest analog, at least in my mind. And yeah, I don't know. It's A, not bad, and B, very interesting. If all you need for something to be good is to be interesting, then yes, this is good. Like, kind of unequivocally, right?
Ricky's taking off a glove and slapping me with it in the face right now. He's like, do you want to go for it? Remember when you were like, oh, I got a half hour in me? Bitch, it's been an hour 40.
Let's go. I'm looking at the time. But like I said, I mean, with the original, like, I didn't really have a ton to talk about. Just like, hey,
sure,
great movie. Really cool movie. This is where like all horror comes from. And then with the remake, like, I liked some of what they did. I did not like other parts of what they did, you know? Like, to me, it's pretty cut and dry, like, my opinions on these. But I don't think that, like, the remake is bad by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, people are stupid if they think that. Like, actually dumb.
Like, I was actually super surprised when you told me that it has, like, bad ratings. And, like, I did look it up on Letterboxd. I see you, like, turning to the second monitor. Like, yeah, no, I did look it up. I did see it. No, I mean, it's... I don't know. I can understand being defensive about a beloved piece of media, though. 100%. The thing is, though...
The world's biggest dick.
The thing is, though, right? I feel more justified hating Avatar than I feel like people are justified in hating this movie, because this is shot for shot. If they remade... Like, I haven't seen the Netflix series, but, like, I've heard it's pretty good. I watched, like, clips of the fights, and they look pretty good. And, like, the clips that I've seen look pretty shot for shot, and I enjoy it. It's good. It's nice. I like that. Are the characters slightly different? Are they intoning things differently? Sure, yeah. It's their own take on it. Do they make certain changes to the script and whatnot? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched it. I can't really comment on that. But it's not as egregious as what they did in the movie adaptation, which I get. I get they have to cut it down for time.
Sure.
I totally understand like why they made certain choices. I just disagree with all of the choices made.
It's just so different when it's like, okay, and like,
But
I'm not
if
doubting.
you can take it like one for one, right? Like,
well, I don't
I
even
don't
mean
know.
it like
It's
that.
it's a much more interesting idea, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yes, but also like, as influential as Avatar is as a TV show, like it doesn't touch
It's no Psycho.
right? You know, so like the thought of taking like one of the most sacred objects, right, and like I use sacred loosely, but like, you know, most influential.
No, I
things,
get what you're saying with it.
you know,
yeah.
and like imagine like a remake of 2001. Have you seen that movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Like
Space
another
Odyssey.
movie that made one of the few movies that could like rival it, right?
Yeah.
As far as like iconography and like iconic status, you know, and remaking it, and then also like kind of subverting expectations with it. Of course, it's going to piss Neanderthals off, you know, not to make a 2001 pun about apes, but you know, like.
You know, an interesting parallel that I think we could make, and I'm surprised we didn't touch on this yet. The Lion King.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, true,
Yeah.
true. Where it's like, let's recreate it shot for shot, except suck out all of the like warmth and like
suck out all
beauty
warmth,
out of it.
life, and
Yeah.
enjoyability out of it. And
Yeah.
I
never seen
I
the
hated the the Lion
The
King.
remake.
I went to watch it with like a group, like the newer one, not the old one. I love the old original animation. I went to watch it with like a group of coworkers back up in Seattle, like when it was first coming out, and there were like 12 of us. And we got in the car, and I was like, man, that movie fucking sucked, man. Like, it was the exact same, just shot for shot, and they took all of the good stuff out of it. Everyone was like, what are you talking about, Ricky? Like, it's the same movie. And I was like, yeah,
It's
but, like,
literally
there's
not, though.
zero emotion in it. It's, like, horrible. And they were like, yeah, but it's the same movie. It just looks
obviously
better now.
It's literally
they look
not
like
the same
real
movie,
animals
then,
now.
dumbass. Like, if
And
it
I
was the
like,
same
well,
movie,
it's
it
just
would.
like not, right? Like,
If it was the same movie, they would have been like, "Hey, this is a retrospective screening of The Lion King from 1994 or whatever the fuck." Like, obviously, it's not the same movie. Like,
to be fair, I had the same disagreement with the friend who was like, "Oh, the woman empowerment scene in Endgame was so good. Did you
so
see
you're
them
just-
all on screen for 30
friends are just
seconds?"
fucking
And I was like,
stupid, is what you're
and I was
saying.
like, "No, that was dumb. It was horrible, actually, and like pandering and disgusting." And they're like,
Yeah.
"Maybe you just hate women." And then like I talk about the Lion King,
And you're
they're
like, "Damn, I do
maybe
hate women,
you
but-"
just hate lions." And it's like, all right, well, sure, fine, fuck me then, bro. Like, I don't know.
It's like, yeah, it's like, how can you look at that and be like,
Oh, this has
is
the
just
same charm
movie.
and appeal and
Yeah.
like emotional
Right.
impact as the original movie for sure, right? Like,
stupid?
yeah,
We have been on mic for like 3 hours.
I know.
This is
Do
crazy.
you want to make it an even three? Like, could we fill 17 more minutes? I think we'd actually go.
I'm
insane
sure we
before
could.
that.
We could definitely.
We could probably, yeah. Do we want to
Like-
go over Viggo Mortensen fucking lore?
No.
He almost hangs dog in this movie. Almost. Couple
He
of
does
really
come
creative
close to hanging
camera
dog.
angles.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of really creative camera angles in the '98
Yeah.
film, which is why I almost dislike some of like the nudity in the shower more, and like the like cuts that they do off of that, right?
It's crazy
because
that we're reopening this.
well, just because they have so
I know.
many like really
Yeah.
interesting and cool like shots and shot composition, especially like dealing with mirrors, which they do a ton,
Well,
and they did a bit in
yeah.
the first one, but like not as heavily in the second.
Okay.
Not as heavily as in the second. And I don't know, really cool, really enjoyable. What's up?
Two things. One, with the mirrors, when Julianne Moore is in the bedroom in the '98 version, and she
Yeah.
like looks in the mirror and she freaks out. I was like,
Yeah.
this is yet another movie in the Julianne Moore canon where she has like a bad scene with a mirror involved. This is like movie 5, like that I've seen. But
I didn't know the more lore. I didn't know there was more lore
there's
to
more
it.
lore. Yeah, we'll watch Safe someday. We'll watch Safe. That'll be
Okay.
that might be like the 100th
Is
Lane
that a
frame or
safe
something.
pick? Okay.
That's a Lane's frame for sure. That movie fucks.
Well,
that might be my
by the
favorite movie of all time. But
did you say 100th lane frame? But because by the time we get to that, that's gonna be like the 2 year mark. We're each gonna hit our 100th, and it's gonna be like 2 years.
that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, nuts to think about.
We're already almost there.
I know. Well, we're at like. Didn't we like just hit the 1 year?
Almost. No, we're at 1 year in
Are we coming
December,
up on it? Okay.
which we'll
nice.
talk about when that comes. We're gonna do some special shit.
Stay tuned,
watchers. God, we're losing.
Oh,
our
hey,
minds.
Kita.
You know what's
She heard the
crazy? Is
I thought it was for me. What's up?
Christopher just sits on the couch and like tunes me out. It's so funny. I just see him. He's like he's playing some video game. I can't tell what it is, but he just has no idea. It's so funny. He's like, I can't listen to this screeching.
Is he trying out Deadlock?
No, I don't think so. He's probably playing Project Zomboid. Anyway,
Yeah,
no, okay.
yeah.
We gotta fucking put a fucking cap on this. So the shower scene in the 98 version.
Put a shower cap on this?
I gotta hand it to you for that one. That was good.
Well, thanks.
So the original, it's not that it's not shocking and violent, but
No, for sure. It's very shocking and violent.
it's also like, because of the 60s of it all, it is more chaste, and it's not
Yes.
to our level of violence and, you know, nudity that we're used to today. And so it does have a bit more of a remove, like a level of remove to it, you know, or like a level of like, yeah, just like the same, like, it's just a little bit more safe, I guess, or sanitized. Just like the, you know, the scene of them in the very beginning when they're cheating, you know, it's not like they're both naked,
Right.
like what, right?
Yeah.
Or like, you know, when he's peeping on her, like he's not literally jacking off. It's just kind of
Right.
implied that he's like aroused. And
Right.
so in the remake, when they show like pretty graphic nudity, like when she like falls over, like, you know, in the shower scene, or like when, you know, she's, you know, just like the violence of it, of her like turning around and like kind of struggling, it is jarring because you're like not expecting it, because you're comparing it to the original, which is scary but not to the same level of like graphicness. So in addition to just like updating it for modern sensibilities, it's also like kind of playing on what you're expecting, I think.
Yeah, and I think we did sort of touch on that with the at least with like the reveal, like in the 60s version, how wrapped up the killer is versus the 98 version,
Right,
where it's like
one.
much more obvious who it is, and because it's already like the, I don't want to say base material, but the like the material is there already, right? Like if you've done your required reading, your required watching, then you're gonna get what's going on. You already know what's going to happen here, and it's not going to be a shock. And so like, if you're not playing for the shock value, like how else do you play that? I guess it's not. I guess it's not bad. I don't know. Maybe my thoughts haven't fully matured on it yet, I guess. Especially because I didn't really...
be a real cinephile and not just like a stupid, dumb American.
True.
You said earlier.
Doom American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
French is
Dunkov.
stupid.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, for sure, definitely part of it's my media literacy. I think the other part of it is just...
I'm kidding.
Maybe not having the right mentality. Because, like, I was not watching it as... Like, I got that it was a shot-for-shot remake, but I wasn't really, like, watching it as a concept art piece, as, like, oh my god, this is so crazy. This is an insane pull that you're going to hate me for, but it reminds me a lot of Full Metal Alchemist versus Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Which is the same story, but abridged, right? Like,
so Alchemist, the manga was being released as it was being animated, and so eventually the anime outpaced the manga. So they kept animating it, and they had their like own ending, and the tone of it's like very different. It's more like it's closer to like a noir-ish, like a noir mystery, which I really, really enjoy. Brotherhood expects you to have watched at least the first like 13 or 23 or whatever episodes of Full Metal Alchemist because they zip through that shit in the beginning of Brotherhood.
Oh,
like
sure.
the first 6 episodes is like just a compressed
Yeah.
version of the other ones. Like pretty much every scene is there still, but a
Right.
lot of like the emotions and tones feel like
So
really
the context
off.
is so important, yeah, to
Right.
like know what you're getting into. Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that
no.
doesn't piss me off the way that you think it might.
I
that
just
makes
thought
sense as a pull.
making an anime reference would, I don't know,
No,
cause you to like start growing horns and like, you know.
those were already there, man. Come on. Leave it
My
alone.
bad, my bad. Little tiefling action.
The
Sorry.
bitches love it when we talk about anime because like our anime episodes are the highest rated episodes we get. Like Rojin Z is like the
Wow.
top 3. Yeah, part of that's definitely because what other podcast has ever talked about Rojin Z?
True though. Honestly, I think it's great to be
No,
like
you're
be
not
able
wrong.
to shine light on that. I found another like anime deep cut pull by it's early work by Satoshi Kon. Satoshi
Cone.
Is it Kon? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like early animated work from him, which he's not the director for. I think he's just
okay.
credited as an animator, but it's like super cool stuff. I think it's late 70s, early 80s. I'll have to find it.
Hell yeah.
But it'll be a cool
Cool.
one to watch because it's also like tech, sort of.
Well, shit, bitch. You just perfectly fucking segued us into talking about next week on We Want to Watch.
Oh
Like-
shit!
like-
What do we want to watch next week on We Want to Watch? It's
Quite
a Rick's
literally,
pick, isn't it?
It's a Rick's pick. I can tell you what Rick picked, because we
What
picked
did
all
Rick
these
pick?
in advance.
Yeah.
As a continuation of our We Want to Wail series. This is fun. Also, this is great. We're doing a double feature of 2 movies that have a lot of similarities to compare each other to. So, the first one we are watching in the pair is Perfect Blue from 1997, directed by Satoshi Kon. And then our second piece is Black Swan from 2010, directed by Darren Aronofsky. So,
Oh yeah.
you have not seen either of these, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet.
Yeah. And I thought Aronofsky was our guy, but it turns out
He's not our
he's
guy. No, he's...
Big poopy doo-doo head. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, he sucks. He made The Whale.
Right,
Perennial movie we will
right.
never watch.
And
We should
and,
have-
and
what's
not the We Want a Whale. It's just
Yeah.
the whale, which like
Yeah.
sucks and is bad.
A secret other podcast called We Won't Watch.
It's just us like shitting on movies that we're never gonna watch.
That we
And we're
haven't
like,
seen.
This
Yeah.
shit sucks, bro. I couldn't even sit through a second of it. I didn't watch any of this shit. It was so bad. That would actually be
Oh.
really fun and like cathartic sometimes. And then we could like shit on people that like we know who like the movie, and we could be like,
Mhm.
"This fucking idiot told us to watch it." And, anyway.
No, true. Yeah, I won't name names here, but so yes, we are gonna watch
Wasn't
this
a
movie.
fan of that person either. Anyway.
I don't. We could be talking about multiple different people. It's the
Oh
problem.
well, I don't know. There's one person in particular that
Wait, who are you talking about?
Oh, I was talking about
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
yeah, because he was like, oh well, maybe it makes you uncomfortable, and you just have to like push past that. Like, what if it's
movie
just like
was he talking about? Was it The Whale?
I think he was talking about the whale.
okay,
Yeah, because like
Fucking fuck that
like we were
movie.
just talking about like oh yeah, like I don't know, I'm not gonna watch
I
it. It
remember
kind of
now.
looks bad.
Yeah, because I was like, it's fat phobic and looks like shit,
Yeah.
and like it looks mean
and
and evil.
I was like, oh, it kind of looks like misery porn. And like
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to
Well,
watch
actually,
that
the
shit.
point is for you to feel miserable while you watch it. Checkmate. Like,
Right? It's like, oh, okay, great, cool. That's
God.
fun and interesting, I guess.
Pass.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
So we'll talk more about the context behind Black Swan,
The context.
but that is supposed to be his best movie. I think
Oh,
it's probably
shit.
the one that has aged the best of all of his movies. I've seen a few of them.
Okay.
So I think that'll be a really interesting one, especially because it's so thematically similar to Perfect Blue. Also
hell
a
yeah.
movie I think probably not the one that is considered Satoshi Kon's best movie. I would have to dig more into the critics to see if people prefer that or Paprika. But
I've always heard Paprika as like
I thought so too. But
yeah.
Perfect Blue is a really good movie. So I've seen
Okay,
both.
I'm excited for it,
So-
honestly.
Good. Yeah, anime. Cool.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Watching anime and shit.
Should we do an episode of Hot Ones one time where we just eat hot wings on mic?
We can actually. Zach got the like Hot Ones like taste thing from like 1 to 9.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I went through it with him. One of them is just disgusting. It's not hot. It's just like disgusting. It's like the worst thing I've tasted in my life. And it's like 6 or 7 too. It might even be 5. It's like one like right around the middle. And then like the really hot ones after it don't seem as bad because you're like, well, at least I don't have like dog shit in my mouth. And then you get to like 9 and 10. And I think 9 was actually like hotter than 10. And it's like, oh, what the fuck? This is horrible, actually. So we could do that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, you just like sip from the bottles as we talk about the movies. You're not even eating wings.
No, that'd be horrible. That'd be so bad.
It's gonna be bad no matter what. You gotta eat the one that tastes like dog shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so bad. I don't know. I think it was like Jamaican jerk inspired. And it's like, all right, wow. I love Jamaican jerk. I don't know what this was inspired by, but I don't know, man. Go back out there, get some more inspiration.
Next week, we want to watch Perfect Blue and Black Swan. I'm not naming the years and the directors because I said them earlier in the episode, and I doubt that there are other movies by those names.
Hell yeah.
You know what it is.
You know what it is. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Yeah. You know what it is.
We need an outro.
Ravioli, ravioli, give me the formioli.
You know what it is. Yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.